Well, listen, thanks a million for doing this. I really appreciate you taking time out. If your Instagram
It's
is anything
late.
to go by, you're a busy
We were going
boy.
to do this years ago. This is the problem.
Yeah, we had this set up.
Was
You were coming over
that
for,
first Dublin?
yeah, I know it was the second one.
No, we were going to chat for the first one, 100%. We were very close within the first and second one, and we were going to try and chat around the first. I'm almost adamant that we were definitely going
No,
to do
I'm adamant it was the second one because it was post Filthy,
it. Okay, all right,
and I
okay,
because I did the first one.
okay,
And I was planning on going up. Yeah, that's it. And Sloan a bit boring. I remember messages saying like, "It's a bit of a shit show here at the
let's do
minute,"
it
and
now.
then you were
Yeah.
like, "I actually forgot about it, so that suits." Yeah. So you were we almost sat down. God, I haven't done an actual in person interview in fucking ages. So I remember from that conversation that you don't drink coffee. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to probably never be allowed back on again. So the caffeine, and this isn't a sponsored post, but the caffeine that I do have is not from coffee. I mean, I gave it a real good go. I just don't drink hot drinks, so I've never drank tea, I've never drank coffee, and then I was like, probably 3 years ago, I said, right, I'm going to try. I was like, I'm going to get over myself, and I'm really going to try. And I tried like 5 or 6 different coffees. I just can't do it, man.
Do you ever
Like
have
I
iced
can't.
coffee then if you don't like hot coffee? No.
Tried it. I still, it's the taste. It's weird. I explain to everybody I have a very uncultured palate. So what the difference is, it's not that I think I'm right and everybody else is wrong. I know I'm wrong and everybody else is right. I like before I've got a weird upbringing, man. But before I met my wife, like I didn't even know what an avocado was. Like I'd never eaten an avocado. So yeah, things like that. Red wine to me is just vinegar. I mean, I don't drink. I've not drank for like 3 years, but when I did, if you put red wine in front of me, you could have said it was a £32,000 glass. I'd have just said it tastes like vinegar. Get it out of my face. So yeah, I know it's me. I'm the one with the problem, not everyone else. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, I must apologize. It is
No,
something that's
I've
missing in
had
my life.
I've had plenty on that don't drink coffee. Don't worry. You actually reminded me there of a story one of my friends told me where he got a NutriBullet, and it was when they first came out, and he was following a recipe, and like the whole selling point of the NutriBullet was like it'll like a chicken carcass, anything, it'll
Yeah.
grind it up into nothing. So the recipe that he was making was for a smoothie, and it was like one whole avocado, and he was like looking at it going, "Surely not! Like this everything like." So he put it in and broke his NutriBullet. He just threw the whole thing in, like so. Yeah, that reminded me of that. What was I going to say there? Oh yeah. Usually I ask for. Sorry, I just found that's like I remember crying at when he told me that. I usually ask for a coffee memory from people. Is there something then that stands out for you as maybe a travel memory of like somewhere you were, someone you were with that springs to mind where it was a proper like next level pinch me moment?
With coffee.
Or even just travel, because obviously coffee isn't high up on your list of priorities.
I mean, in terms of coffee, let's start with a coffee and then we can kind of go from there with that. I mean, again, I'm such an uncultured swine. I have no idea what this machine is, why it percolates, what percolating is. I thought it was kind of dance that kids do on TikTok or something. I had no idea. And I remember, again, like so LA has a very particular clientele to LA, other than the severe amount of homeless people and drug addicts. It has just the world's biggest population of hipsters.
Yeah.
And you go into some places and like the stuff on a menu is, I have no idea what it's saying to me. I mean, it's in English, but I have no idea what it's saying to me. And a particular eye opener for me, and again, I'm sure people who listen to this will know, but coffee made out of batshit
Yeah.
was an interesting, just I didn't know that. Well, one, how my mind works is like, how did they discover that? Like, was it an
I'm always the
accident?
same.
Like,
Anytime you hear of even some vegetables, I'm like, who is the first person to be like, do you know what we should do? Like, let's eat it. And like, all right, yeah, you go ahead and we'll see what happens afterwards.
I mean, a carrot, it's a weird looking thing. It's in the
Yeah, yeah.
ground. Like, what's it? So yeah, I mean, that was an eye opener, and just kind of going into these places where, I don't know, like it's a rye bread made out of the carcass of a vegan that passed away in an ethical ceremony, that's then on a balanced egg of like, I don't know, whatever. Like it's that ridiculous. And kind of
Yeah.
seeing that was a real eye opener. I think in terms of travel, I again was like, because of my like quite difficult upbringing. I'd never really traveled until I was in my like late 20s, and then really luckily I managed to go to quite a few places, and particularly the US has always been I just love the country's batshit. Like it's like 50 countries in one. People are just a complete different mentality to everything. I absolutely love the US.
The thing I find insane about it is that it's literally like everywhere you go is like so reminiscent of television or films or something. Like I went to the games 2 years ago, and every shop I went into, I was like, holy shit, this is exactly like all the shops I've seen on every TV show ever. And then like every street, I was like, holy shit, this is exactly like I couldn't stop myself. And my wife was like, I fucking knew you were going to be like this when we came here.
You're not coming back again. And yeah, I mean, like, there's a huge element of that. Like, regardless of where you are, especially LA, it's like we're really lucky. We've got friends there, and we stay with them, and we get to see loads of places. And our friends have their family own this like ranch in Malibu, and as you drive along to go to the ranch, you pass like Mel Gibson's house, Cher's house, like Bruce Willis's house, all this kind of stuff that's not, they don't live in Hollywood. Like that's a load of bollocks about, these Hollywood store tars. Like loads of them live in Malibu. And you just kind of drive past, and it was really funny playing like Cher as you drove past Cher's house, and then just seeing the pure like wealth that these people have. And then their ranch is used by Disney, and it was used by like The Biggest Loser, if you remember that program.
Oh yeah.
With
that's
Jillian
your
Michaels,
one.
the biggest CrossFit fan in the world. Yeah. So it was just really weird seeing this like shed that was a shed. That's not the word, is it? Barn.
Barn, yeah.
I said shed. Barn that was used in that was quite funny. But I think in terms of like travel, that was amazing. I think the biggest place that was a big culture shock for me was Bali. Going over to Bali and seeing thousands of people on mopeds, like a cow on the back of a moped, entire families on the back of mopeds. And that, again, is a cultural thing as well. For them, tied into their culture and religion, they don't want to be moody. Like aggression and being sad is a really bad thing, and it's really frowned upon. So everybody just being like almost cult-like insanely happy, even though they live in some like really bad conditions. It's not a rich country, Bali. Was a bit of a like, okay, like, there's a different way of seeing the world, and there's very different like ways. So yeah, I mean, the biggest outstanding thing for me is I'd love to go to China and Japan. We were supposed to go to the Sanctionals, then this thing happened. It's been on a couple of newspapers since, so that didn't happen. But that's the next big one. I think from a completely different culture, it'd be amazing to go over there and just see how a completely different 3,000-year-old culture lives, as opposed to us. But I'm also allergic to nuts, and there's peanuts in every single thing, so I'll probably be eating crisps for the entire time.
Are you actually allergic or like hate them?
No, like crazy allergic. Like nearly died at a competition here because I ate a bar that I shouldn't have done. That had like tiny amount, and then I was whisked away to the hospital. Then I pulled a John Terry. I came back from the hospital, took my top off, took a picture at the end, and on reflection, I was yellow, so it wasn't a good thing to do.
The picture, you mentioned there that a difficult upbringing. What aspects of it were difficult?
Yeah, I mean, like I just grew up in a great part of Manchester, but a rough part of Manchester. Didn't have particularly great parents. All both had their own singular issues, and then like left home at a very, very, very early age. So just didn't have engaged parents that were. I didn't give a flying fuck, to be honest, about stuff. So it was as I got older and learned like different life lessons and stuff. Like I said, literally, it was a joke. Avocados. I didn't eat rice till I was like in my mid-20s. There was lots of things that was really like, okay, this is how things probably should be. So it was super interesting from that. But I just don't see it as like a let's bleat about it kind of thing. I always just think, well, it is what it is, and if I found an avocado when I was 26, I've still found them. They're very expensive, but I've still found them.
You've been busy on, like, I suppose with lockdown and everything as well. It's given you more opportunity with podcasts and doing interviews and stuff. So like you've been on Talking Elite and Make Pods Great Again, and obviously now the Pinnacle today.
Mate,
you obviously become like the face of battle cancer. Is that like, was that decision made earlier on, or is that something that just kind of sort of evolved and happened? Because obviously it's a nice symbiotic relationship there, because the more exposure you get through, say, like My Protein or, you know, Men's Health magazine or whatever, or any initiatives you're doing on your own bat, or like teaming up with Weight or whatever, the more exposure battle cancer gets then as a, you know, a byproduct, I guess.
Yeah, and like it's really nice that you've seen that, because that is the plan. Like when I made the decision to take career break from the police, which was like last year, it was I was really dead set against it, and I was like, the problem is you know, there's only so long that people can particularly like me, or I might say one wrong thing, or I might piss people off, or I don't know, like maybe something I do, and I'm so conscious that what we work so hard to do and what we're working to evolve with battle cancer, that I don't want to be the down bringer of that. Like there's an element of that. And so we started working with a PR company, because to kind of get next level in terms of with battle cancer, there's only so much I could keep, you know, Facebook messaging gyms. There's only so much I could keep like making my own stuff. We were a phenomenal PR company, and they were great. They did, you know, they did it for us free and really helped. And a big part of what they said was like, you need a spokesperson, you need a voice. And to get anything in mainstream media, like as bad as it sounds, they don't give a shit. So like we can say we've fundraised nearly £1 million for 36 charities. Nobody cares. Like, you know, the Daily Mail doesn't care. You know, BBC, ITV, whatever, they don't give a shit. So what you need to do is have an alternative path, that as you build everything that you're trying to do with battle cancer, you need another angle to come in at stuff. So it probably took me like a good 3 or 4 months to kind of be convinced to do it. And we'd seen it on the conversation floor. Like when we did comps, we always got such a great response, because it was like, oh, who are these guys? Like, oh, that's like a weird thing, like cancers in the team name. Like, that's a bit strange. Why would they do that? And that was always on purpose, because then people would see it, they would get some like airtime, and then we'd kind of reach somewhere else. And going to all those comps is how we met and become good friends with people who are tied into that like upper level of CrossFit, especially. But yeah, kind of reluctantly, I've always been a reasonably good speaker. Like in terms of my job was in the police, like I was quite good within that. I was an advanced interviewer, so I was used to speaking. I'd speaking in court and speaking my way out of various things when I worked in other sides of my job. So I knew I could kind of talk, but I needed to get as many different avenues of eyes in on it. And a big thing for us is survival of trying to work with partners, and partners quite often, especially so if we'll talk about the likes of My Protein, they're huge. The Hut Group is a £2 billion company. You know, to get noticed and to get that door open with someone of that size, they just don't like accept an email and then go, yeah, cool, let's do all this stuff. So you have to work with people for a period of time. They have to realize how hard you want to work, like what this vision is and what this dream is. And then it kind of works. And, you know, I've been super open and honest about it. If I put a picture with my boobs out on Instagram, it might get someone's attention, potentially, because I look a bit different, I'm tattooed or whatever. But then in my captions, I want to get people. So if I can get you from that top bit, and then I can start telling you something, be it about battle cancer, be it about mental health, be it about like something good, that's been a strategy of getting some attention, and it kind of works in some ways. And I think from a voice point, coming on podcasts and talking about what we're doing, you know, although I repeat myself quite a lot, I live and breathe it. So it's a massive pleasure to just completely talk about it all the time. And I think it's really hard unless you're leading that ship to talk about it. Like when I was in the cops, like I wouldn't have been as passionate about talking about what Greater Manchester Police was doing or what Devon and Cornwall Police was doing. I'd be like, yeah, I do this, and yeah, I have to do that, and da 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 da. But where with this, it's like, no, I'll talk to anyone at any time about it. So it was complete. I know it's the longest winded answer, but it was partly like advice that it needed to happen. But then I'm really, really careful of it, and really, really don't want to piss people off, and then we lose people from a wider aspect, because battle cancer is way bigger than me. It's, you know, it's for thousands of people, and we want to grow it and grow it. So yeah, it's a fine line. So I try not to annoy people too much. I'm sure I do.
Yeah, no, I emphasize that because I think I'd be very similar with my job, where like it's definitely a job. Like it's definitely, you know, it's not, I don't think I've been like called to do it. It's not some vocation where it's like, I finally found my thing. Like, I think I quite like teaching because I quite like engaging with people or whatever. And it's nice when you get that like aha moment where a kid
Yeah.
realizes or understands something and you're kind of like, oh, they know that because I told them it. Like, but I think in reality, it's like, well, if I didn't tell them, someone else probably would have anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Whereas I think with the podcast, then same, if anyone ever wants me to talk at them for 20 minutes, just ask me a question about the podcast and I'll just hit play and go. So I definitely empathize with that. Do you ever tire then of being in the spotlight? Like, does it ever get exhausting, like having to, you know, be so ever present on social media, I guess, or be consistent at least in putting up stuff and putting up like sharing, certain aspects of your life or whatever? Like, you ever just like, oh, I just can't be arsed?
Um, I did. I kind of went through that a little bit, but then I see it in like a really different way. Like I see it as this will not last. Like it's cool that people, I get messages off people which are, not just to like, follow me for this. Like I get messages off people that are really, really kind and they say, I've been struggling for motivation and I just know that every day you're going to be sharing some videos or you're going to be sharing some training. Or, I had a phenomenal set message in chat with a lady who she'd had cancer, recovered, significant number of years had passed, but she was a great swimmer. She was a real good like ocean swimmer and she'd not done anything. And she said she'd been following me for months and months. And when I like nearly drowned at Wadapalooza and then told myself I'm going to become good at swimming, she kind of followed that journey and then messaged and she said for the first time she'd walked into the sea, she'd gone off, she sea swam and this massive weight had been lifted and stuff. And I was like, fuck, like, me just whinging about putting a video on Instagram, which takes a couple of minutes, or, taking a moment to think, well, what can I write about this? That impact it's a privilege that won't last. Like it's a
Mm.
privilege for a really small period of time. And, I don't have hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people that see me. I'm really lucky that I get quite a lot of people interacting with me, which is really cool. But I'm not, Kendall Jenner or whatever it's called. I'm not whoever that's got, the huge, huge reach. But that for me, I think it won't last forever. So if I get a privilege of putting something out and it really helps someone or it does something in its way, that's really good. So I answer as many people as I can. Like I get weird messages. Obviously, I don't answer them, but most people just, it's really funny. Like a lad messaged me the other day and he said, I'm really struggling with my front rack, and you always talk about struggling with your front rack. Like, have you got any suggestions? So I answered him and just told him what I did. And his first message back was, I can't believe you've answered me. No one ever answers me. I was like, how shit's that? Like, I know people who you're messaging, and I know that they'll live on their phone. And I know that to just give you a quick, like, tidbit of advice that I've gone through costs me nothing. It's like 10 seconds of my day. And then it's going to be really helpful. And I think that's where some people who are kind of very influential on social media get way up their own ass, and at the end of the day it's a social media app that's got a number attached to a login. Like that's what it is. So I don't ever get bored of it anymore, or feel like I shouldn't do this. And I mean, I don't share everything. Like, there's some stuff that goes on day to day that I don't particularly share, but again, I feel like if you do it right, you can convince people and help people through some dark shit potentially.
Yeah. I think the best advice I was given for it was like, it's social media, so just be social on it and it'll work to your benefit. And like I think after, well, like when I set it up, it was easy at the start because I think at the very beginning I had one follower and it was myself, so it was easy because like I didn't have anyone to engage with. But I think I've prided myself on a similar outlook where if I get a message, I'll engage with it in some shape or form, like I like it or reply to it or something, like, because I think I've been where that guy was, of like messaging someone and just like seeing and nothing happened and be like, right, okay, like fair enough. Do you know? And like I'd never be bitter about it. I'd never be like, oh fuck's sake, like what are you doing with your life? It's a bit like, what's your man? It's Stan, isn't it? In the Eminem song. Like I wouldn't go that far, but like, you do have that pang of like, oh, that's a bit shit. Like it's a bit disappointing or whatever. Like, so I think it's something that I kind of would echo from you there, of like, it doesn't take long to be like thanks or anything, like, so you mentioned a few times there you were in the police. Um, were you a detective?
Yes, I was a detective sergeant.
Is there any?
So I
Have
was,
you ever involved in anything juicy?
oh, lots. So yeah, I worked in very serious crime. So I wasn't in uniform for very long. Um, I was in uniform for about a year. Very quickly came out, got promoted very quickly, and then did my detectives very quickly. Yeah, so I mean, my areas of specialism were modern day slavery, human trafficking, child sexual exploitation, surveillance. Worked on various things across various places, and I had people that didn't particularly like me. Death threats. I'd get a phone call, and it would be, "We've had a credible threat against your life, so you're gonna have to go home a different way, and we're gonna have to give you this, and you're not gonna have to go
Did
here."
you
And
have to live like out of
um,
the area that you worked in then? Did you have to live like a certain distance
yeah, you
away?
live
Or
a certain distance away. And I mean, in terms of when you're actively in the police, you can't. There's certain things, like if you were to come over to Belfast and go over to Northern Ireland, like there's certain areas that you're told, like I have to tell work, like I would have had to have told work I was going to Northern Ireland, and places in Europe very similar. I remember trying to get authorization to go and compete in powerlifting in Russia, and it was a flat no. Like, you are not going to Russia. We're not allowing you to go to Russia, because counterterrorism would look and go, okay, there's just not safe for you to kind of go at the minute. And so that's where like my name thing came around, because my name's Scott Britton, but it's Scott Brits everywhere, because I was always never really forthcoming with kind of who I fully was, and that was from people wanting to kill me. So I as much as I can be quite nice, I was also really good at pissing dangerous people off. So it's an area of my life that is nice to not have to worry about for a while.
yeah, it doesn't really. You wouldn't really require a code breaker, would you? From Britain to Brits, like it's not like you totally change your name that people are like,
But
oh,
you'd
it's
be
definitely not
surprised.
him.
It's, I always found like the easiest, like you could very easily confuse people. So yeah, they'd be like, wait a minute, but his name, he's got the same beard and he's got the same face, but it's
It's so weird that he's got 75 matching tattoos, but a different name.
he's got a different name. It's not the guy. Cut it. Come on, get back in the van. It's not the guy.
Yeah. Was it hard? Like, so obviously if you go in through, you talk to, like nurses and doctors and stuff that are at work, and it's difficult not to bring stuff home. Like you mentioned some pretty harrowing settings there of like human trafficking and slavery and child sex. Like, is it hard to just be like, right, it's 6 o'clock, I'm done, and like go do something else?
Yeah, I mean, like I remember doing a podcast for this comedian, and he was kind of talking about like, why did you set this up? Like, what do you get from it? And to be fair, at kind of the peak time of me working on really bad stuff, I was starting to do battle cancer. So I had this like phenomenal positive balance.
Mm,
And this is why when people go, oh, this thing that you and the team now do, it seems like a really selfless thing. And I'm like, bullshit to that. Like, it's not. It's actually really selfish. Like, it's a very selfish thing that we do, because it's such a positive impact, and you get such like reward back from seeing something grow and from helping people. Also, I was just very good at kind of putting a thing in a box in my mind to say, that's that. I'm definitely on an autism spectrum in the way that I see certain things, like, and that was always very helpful. So I mean, I won't go into too much, but I've like held bits of people, I've carried people who are dead, I've stepped in people that are partially decomposing, the real bad stuff is I've dealt with baby deaths, I've dealt with toddler deaths, I've been there in the hospital, I've done those things, and my head was always, okay, my job in this situation is to be a service. So it wasn't even to be a person, because that family, they don't fucking remember my name or particularly who I was, but what they will remember is, how did that person help them and treat them through this terrible part of their life, be it something terrible has happened to them individually or a loved one or whatever. So that was always my mindset. It was like, okay, this isn't on me, this isn't my grief, this isn't my problem. My job within this is to be as a rock and as professional and as supportive as possible as I can be for other people. But I think I was very lucky that if I get stressed, I train. Like,
yeah.
it's just a weird thing, and I can overtrain sometimes, and I can like let other aspects kind of go. But that was always my release. So I had battle cancer supporting me in one sense, and I had like the ability to train and compete. And coming from powerlifting, where if you want to scream and shout and smash things up, like, that's kind of encouraged. So you've got a great outlet to it. And then CrossFit was a little bit different, when I'm screaming my head off at people and like, we don't really do it that aggressively here. Like, okay, right, okay. So that was always kind of helpful. I think the luxury of working in that sometimes, as well as they're not my family. It's not my friends. It's not people I know. And I'm not trying to be Mr. SAS guy, and it doesn't bother me. Like, stuff does bother you, but I think it can bother you in certain different ways. So I would just say I would kind of collectively just get a bit sad. And I was always like, just the world can be a bit of a sad place. So I would have little triggers written down. If I was starting to act in a certain way, I would go and do stuff. Like, I would go and forcibly put myself in a different position, in a different situation, where I'd end up laughing, or I'd end up like seeing people, or I'd end up being part of something good, and that kind of balanced it out. But I worked with people that were on the same jobs as me, and I mean, there was a story that I told the guys the Make Pods Great Again off the camera about cancer, that the conversations I used to have about setting up our events in the middle of crime scenes was just surreal. And one day it'll be, I'll write about it somewhere. But that was just a pure example of how trying to build something and have a positive impact, basically, we did more good for me than than for anything else.
Was it an easy decision to leave then? Like to I suppose it maybe would have been easier, would have been difficult, I suppose, to leave the security of it, like as in financial security of it, or long-term financial security, maybe not the personal health security, but was it a hard thing to take a break from it then?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like, it was all I ever decided I was going to do. So, when I went through college, and then I managed to get myself through university, and leaving university, that was it. It was like cops, the police was always going to be this thing. And it was weird to face that, first of all, and be like, okay, my entire persona has been around being a cop, and like, I'm so comfortable in all these like highly charged situations, and I'm Mr. like take control of everything and whatever. So, but the drive I'd never felt before, like what I want to do with Battle Cancer, I've never ever felt that before for anything, and so that was super easy. But yeah, I mean, and this was pre knowing that anything like COVID was going to happen. Leaving a job that was reasonably well paid, was a secure pension. I could only get fired if I broke the law, and I don't plan on breaking the law. So again, in terms of a job security, that's huge. That that's massive for people. So yeah, that what it was a big aspect of that. But I kind of also got into a bit of a thing that, okay, I'm going to regret this down the line if we don't try.
Yeah.
And that balanced it out. And we've somehow, by the partner support and by not paying ourselves a wage and everything else we've managed to do, we've survived so far COVID. And if we survive out of it, I think nothing can then really knock us down if we get through that.
I saw, I don't know, was it yesterday, the day before, you put up a thing at your first CrossFit event. Like, it didn't seem that long ago. How did you come across CrossFit?
So it started because of Battle Cancer. So I was powerlifting, and I still was powerlifting when I did that comp. So I went on and won a European title that year when I did that comp. That was kind of like my first dip into a competition. And when we decided we were going to do Battle Cancer, I was like, I need to learn the CrossFit community, because this is the closest thing to what we're trying to build in terms of group of people and the way that the workouts are and everything else. So went to a gym, was kind of like 80% powerlifting, and then I saw someone do like a ring muscle up. I was like, sick, I think I could do that. And then like I did it, and it was like awful. It was just pure like power. It was nothing else. And I was like, okay, cool. I saw someone do like a handstand. I was like, okay, I want to do that. And then it was this kind of evolution of seeing things. And I admit this to everyone, I thought stuff was going to be easy. I was really good at powerlifting. I was so strong. And I was like, well, okay, so I can back squat 250, I can deadlift 250, I can bench 170, I can clean and jerk 180, no problem. Doesn't work like that. Really doesn't. So like, it was a very quick learning curve of, I am nowhere near fit enough, and I am so structurally like sound in 3 movements, and that's it. Like, I'm very good at 3 movements, of which I have never seen a 1 RM back squat, a 1 RM bench, and a 1 RM deadlift. Like, the CrossFit total is the closest you're going to get to that, but that's all well and good if you can't do anything to get to the games where you're going to do the bloody thing. So that became a massive shift, and I think it probably took me 2 years to realize I better start doing fitness. Like, I was just easing off the powerlifting and kind of upping some more stuff, and it's not until I'd say like last year that I'd say last summer was a definitive decision to say, I'm going to try and get fit, and that takes a lot of time. Like, a lot of time.
Did you think when you started that you'd have a team at a sanctioned event? or like reach that
But,
level?
well, I think I was like, "Man, I could just go to the games. Surely it's not that hard." Like, do you know, but in all seriousness, like, and this isn't trying to be like being arrogant. It's how stupid if you don't realize how good CrossFit athletes are. You can walk in and presume that that's doable. So I'd competed at world level in powerlifting. I'd won titles in multiple different countries. I was like, okay, I'm one of the strongest people in my weight class in the world. Surely it can't be that difficult for me to, get to be in a level of this. And very quickly I realized, like, no, there's no chance that I'm going to get to that. And then I think, in all honesty, I probably spent a good 18 months, like, kind of underselling what I could do, and that the swing. So I talk about it a little bit, that the swing of thinking, oh my god, this is so easy, I'm just going to be able to like walk into elite CrossFit. You then, when you realize how far away you are from that, it can swing you too far, and it can put a mental block in how you see what you can do. And as much as I'm genuinely not his massivest fan in the world, but Matt Fraser had a really good interview where he said he was sat next to Rich Froning and someone else, and he looked side by side, and he was like, oh, their legs are the same size as my legs, like their arms are the same size as my arms, like there isn't that much difference here, and I can catch them up, and Jesus, he's done that. But it kind of came, the more I got to train with people who were elite CrossFitters, they were ahead of me, but like not that far that I needed to just kind of doubt myself as much as I was.
Yeah.
And then the age thing creeps in. Like, I'm 33, so I've only got a couple of years before it's masters, and I didn't really think sanctionals as teams. And I think, to be super honest with you, and everybody would say this, I was lucky with teammates. I was very, very lucky with teammates. Like, we still did the qualifiers, like we qualified. We never got invitational, so we had to work really hard. But I think I'm just really lucky that I've got friends who are fitter than me, and I will let them do a bit more of the work than I do it, and pull through. But Norway was one where we were really really well mixed, and I think that was probably the best team that I've ever had.
Yeah, I think like I saw you at Filthy, and I was saying this to Josh when I had him on. Like the enthusiasm and just general like good vibes of the team were incredibly endearing to watch. Like, because it was kind of like, I don't know, there was just kind of a scrappy terrier thing about it, where it's like you, like, I suppose you were happy to be there and like embrace the moment and enjoy the
Mm.
moment, but like it's not like you were a shit show either. Like, you didn't like fall apart anywhere. I think something that you talk about a lot on your stories, or that you mentioned there earlier on, is like your lack of range of motion and stuff. And
Mm.
obviously, I suppose in your powerlifting background, like the more weight that's on your back, maybe the easier it is to get into these positions that you need to
Yeah.
find. Like, do you find being involved in fitness and as the face of a brand and stuff like that, that is there like a pressure to perform, or a pressure to, you know, show heavy lifts all the time, or like that kind of thing, like to have this kind of persona of like, oh, he's so fit and so strong, look at all the shit he's putting out online?
I think there was. So I think, again, and I kind of hate to use it as this landmark and stuff, but I think pre-COVID there was, and I think it was very much like how engagement, especially online, became who's the best, like
Yeah.
who's going to grab the attention by being the best. And then for me, before anything kind of really changed, I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to be really fucking honest with people. I was like, I can. So like today, I did snatch session, and I didn't do anything wonderful. Did like 9 reps at 87.5, because I'm really light at the minute, which is always my excuse. I like to get my excuses in. But I did 87.5 kilo. And on the last one, I was so fatigued that bar comes flying over my shoulders, and it's like, the whole like, oh, this is going to flip me around here, and like I'm going to go flying. And what I thought was like, no, sharing that is going to be way more, honest, and way more, it's going to get a lot more traction of showing that I failed. So I remember when the first time I did a 100 kilo snatch, like failed it 13 times in a row that day. And on the 14th one, I did it. And I said, what's more impressive, like getting into that 100 kilo snatch club, or the determination and stubbornness of being like, I will fail that 13 times, and I'm just going to keep doing it until I do it or my arms fall off. And I think that's been a little bit more successful for me, because, let's be honest, I'm not the world's specimen. Like, you look at Zach, like, I sent Zach a workout. He destroyed it by 2 minutes from my time. And 2 minutes in like a 7-minute workout is a big difference. You just watch someone like him, and, I'm really lucky to know Noah Olsen, and Noah, he shows something, ascends something. And and it's like worlds apart, worlds apart. And like it's great for them because they are so much better. But for me, there's a lot of like people at my level, which is great, and I work hard for it. I train 3 hours a day. Like I do train really hard, but I think it's about being honest. And I think since that shift, you know, talking about mobility, talking about how I'm sore all the fucking time, like every single session I am sore. And then I'll speak to CrossFitters at a really high level, and I remember sitting there and saying, like, are you just sore all the time? Or is it just me? Like, is there something wrong with me? And they'd be like, no, do you know why? I'm in so much pain. Like, my wrists hurt every single time. Like, my knees are fucked. And like, that's the honest chat that happens even with the beasts. Like, they work through pain. I was like, I'm just going to be more honest about this and talk about it. I think it stopped. I don't know. What do you think? Like, I don't see as much like positioning anymore. Like, I don't see as much like, I don't know how to say it without coming across cross, but
Posturing
like,
kind of.
yeah, I don't see that much.
Yeah, I think maybe I don't know. Again, it might be you kind of I suppose you kind of create like an echo chamber a bit on social media pretty quickly without realizing it. Like so, I think I kind of maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, I just kind of realized like no matter what stage I'm at, there's always going to be someone like there's so many different levels to the sport. Like you talk about, say Noah Olsen, who's like ridiculous, and he did a workout. Like I'd consider you to be ridiculous in comparison to me, and then if he's ridiculous in comparison to you, and then if there's like you mentioned a 2 minute gap in a 7 minute workout, look at him and Fraser in stage one. Like there's a gap there. Do you know, like there's always a gap, and it's always a chasm like between the next level. Like the each percent you move down is such a big gap. And I think I kind of always started thinking about more recently about like my clean is someone else's max deadlift. So like that kind of grounds you a little bit, and then it grounds even further when you think that your max deadlift is someone else's clean. You know, like that. There's
Yeah.
always that leap where it's like, fuck, like. So I think, you know, when people, especially when people put up stuff like, you know, oh, kept it light today, and like I'm always conscious of like someone's watching that being like, what? Like
That's not
that's
heavy.
light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or someone else is watching it going like light. That's a warm up weight. Do you know what I mean? Like whatever you say is so relative to so many different people that it's
Yeah.
like you know you have to really categorize everything that you see. And I think maybe again maybe I'm just echo chambering myself where I don't realize that I've stopped looking at certain things, or you know maybe people are becoming more aware that like it's not as impressive now to, you know, snatch 100 kilos and proclaim it as light, or you know to
Mm.
deadlift 200 and be like, oh, I just kept it easy today. Like, you know, maybe it's not seen as impressive anymore. What is impressive though is the remarkable rise of battle cancer. So we'll say like in 4.5 5 years you've gone from I suppose a few small charity events, I suppose, to like a worldwide movement with, you know, you've got events in the UK, in Dublin, Europe, Miami. You've an online program, you've a physical gym now, you've got this partnership starting with WIT. Like when you look back at battle cancer when you were working in the police and hold these small little events, like did you see it reaching the level that it's reached, or has it even taken you by surprise as well?
Like the kind of wanky answer is yeah, and we're not even anywhere near where I saw it. So I had a really clear vision of like what I wanted to do with it, and and you know, super open and honest. Like I looked at Tough Mudder and I broke down like what Tough Mudder did, and Tough Mudder in like 2 years like significantly expanded, and its impact reached and reached and reached. And like this is why I always say, and it's not because I'm trying to be Mr. Humble Joe and I want everyone to think that I'm nice and blah blah blah. Like it isn't. Like we are nowhere near on the path of what like my kind of 6 year plan for battle cancer is, and regardless of kind of hitting a pause for the year of 18 months of COVID, it was like in terms of I think in terms of access to certain people and the way that we've managed to get in different countries, that's been surprisingly like how that's happened. I wouldn't say it certainly was always planned. Like it was always like, if we do this first one, I always believed in like proof of concept. You do one, you show that this can work. And don't get me wrong, also just to kind of have a measure on that, like people could just stop coming. Like 1 year, everybody could just be like, I don't want to do that anymore. No matter how epic we make it, no matter what new thing that we put in, no matter what we offer back, no nothing. People could one day just be like, nah, I'm not bothered. And then we're done. So I'm always super conscious of that, that there's never a point where us as a movement can be comfortable that we've like reached like an equilibrium. And we drove across America doing all these visits and tours, and I'd go into somewhere and nobody knew who we were. Absolutely no one. And it was in the CrossFit community. And I'm like, I sit there and I think, okay, so we have really cool people posting about us who are the heads of like this massive CrossFit community and movement. But just because they know about me doesn't mean that somebody in like Liverpool knows about me. Doesn't mean someone in Germany knows about me. Doesn't mean that like, across America, they know about us. And there's a huge, huge amount of like work that we need to do, and especially this year. But I think I did see it, and like I have more of where we want to go and where we get to. And I think it's been a massive amount of luck and good fortune in terms of the people we've met when we've met them, but also me and everybody who works behind it are so annoying. We will annoy you until you do something for us. Like I will email you so many times until it gets to that socially awkward point where you have to be like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm like, I'll get you to get to that point. Like until you tell me no, I'm going to keep asking you, and I'm going to keep asking you, I'm going to keep asking you. And that's been the thing that's helped it. But I think the biggest thing is I'm proud of everyone that's been part of it. Like I'm proud that the work that they've volunteered and the work that they've done, and like we've got 2 other people that left their jobs for us in December to come and work with us, and they took like a 50% pay reduction over this period of time. I'm so proud that we're still here, and I'm so proud that we will hopefully get these events back in the summer, and that we've built our own charity. Like we're going through charity registration, and we've got people signed up online that we're physically supporting now, and all that stuff is so cool. But I swear to you now, it's like stage 1 still. Like it's still so much stage 1, because if we can prove that we can open these support networks, if we can prove that people want to come to our events, and these partners see a benefit from working with us, those partners grow and those partners change. Like we can get people outside of the CrossFit community, and we start working with High Price, and High Price are huge. They sponsor like the NFL and the UFC, and I sit on a call with them, and they're in America, so we have to do like weird time calls. But they say you're our favorite partner because you're so passionate and you like want to do everything and you just love everything. And we've had chats with them about what we can do with some of their contracts that they have with massive sports teams. Like I swear we're just at the beginning of it. So I am very proud of what everybody's managed to create, but I'm like, no, we're not quite where I want or set out to see it. And I think that's what pushed us through this time as well. Like I was such a stubborn bastard. I was like, I am not giving up because COVID's here. Like I've not started what I wanted to do. Like we're not doing it. So yeah, I know it's like
does
a
it take
weird
any of the
answer.
joy out of it, out of the moment, like having that drive? Because obviously it's a good attitude to have in a growth sense like that. It's like, it's not enough, I want more. But is it like, does it take any of the joy of the moment out of it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I very rarely say I'm excited. I very rarely say I'm happy, and I very rarely say like I'm proud. They're very things that don't particularly come out of my mouth. It's because I think I can see continually that there's a path, and my mind kind of works like, okay, if we do this now, then there's this, and then if we do that, then there's this, and if we do that, then there's this. So I'm always like, okay, that's cool what we've done, but there's a reason that we've done it, and it's to open up another avenue. And now, especially because we're working with people directly, like I am not happy at all. Like I am not enjoying that we've only got 40 people. Some people have like got 40 people in a week who are post-cancer treatment that are now doing your program like for free across 7 countries. Like, you've got remote programs popping up in Invictus, in Train, in Miami, and all these other places. I'm like, yeah, but that's not 50. I've got 12. I need 50 places. I need all these other kind of things. So I think what I enjoy more is seeing how people who are attached to us and people who have volunteered and people who come to the events, like that's the enjoyment I get of seeing that impact from them and seeing like how much it becomes something to them and is a bit of a wider thing. But yeah, to be super honest, I'm never particularly proud or like, particularly happy.
Your poor missus.
Yeah, she has this problem, especially around Christmas. She's like, no matter what I get you.
Are venues and partners and stuff like more generous, or more like, do they give you more leeway because it's a charity event? Like, can they, so say if like, I don't have a VAT number or anything, I'm not like a registered company, but just say if I was doing something, like, do I get benefits for giving to charity? Like, does it make sense for, obviously they want to work with the brand and they want to help and they want to, you know, do good, but are companies and say venues, I suppose, are probably venues and insurance are probably the most expensive thing for running an event. So is there any leeway there for them to be like, well, look, we can do it for this because it's for charity or whatever?
So we only get one that gives us anything in terms of venues. So I mean, this is again, like we often get asked, like, where, you know, my ticket money, like what does that fund? And so 10% of it funds a back cancer program, which is great, but then the rest of it puts on the event. So our London event, you know, and this is why I think it's really good for people to understand. That probably cost us like £80,000 to put on. And that's not because we're flashy, it's because it's a massive venue. Last year we had like 2,000 people in there fundraising. The fundraising from that event astronomically higher than that, but it costs a lot of money to put on. You know, insurance is huge, barrier hire, like water, paying for bins to be removed, paying for like security. There's like so many things that you have to start paying for. You know, if you want to put lights for people, cost money. You want a TV screen, cost money. Like there's so much that racks up. We don't get nothing off that. The only one that does it is Olympia. So Olympia London give us a phenomenal rate. And I mean, that company is huge. Like they own multiple places across the world. And if you were to line every venue up, you'd think that they were the least likely to do it, but they're actually the ones that do it the most. Other venues are kind of like tough. It's like, you want to put an event on, you're paying the money. Like if you don't want it, I can put someone else in it like very quickly. So that's always like the risk that you run. Like we commit. So with this past year with COVID, we wanted to make everybody's tickets just roll over to next year. So we paid out all our venues and we paid out all our contracts to every single event. So we lost a year's worth of events that didn't sell any tickets. So we paid that out. It's gone. But we've kept everyone's ticket money safe. So if it means that if we had to refund everyone this year, for example, we can. That's difficult because insurance companies don't give a flying fuck whether you do a cancer event or not. Like barrier hire companies couldn't care less. Like all these people, they don't care. I'd say where it's different is partners. Like partners join us for two reasons: because they're really good people. That is always one. Like the relationships that we have with partners is always like deeply personal. It's really, really good. They're like friends, and that's genuinely makes things work really well. And the other is because they genuinely want to build what my vision and what everyone else is pulling towards with what we're doing. You know, I don't think that it's as simple as like just being seen at an event with people anymore, or just having stuff, because the people we work with, they're bigger than us. You know, it's not like I'm promoting somebody that's smaller. Like every single person we work with as a brand is bigger than us. So, you know, for them, it's a massive buy-in, and that's why partnerships and like sponsoring of events with us, it's not that same. You know, it's they're funding the programs for us. They're funding us to go on tours and talk about stuff and get this up and running. And you know, the amount of gifting that we did, like at High Price, we gave away like £30,000 worth of stuff to people post cancer treatment last year. They all got like Hypervolts. They all got like Normatec systems that are like £1,000. Like we gave so much stuff out to people to just help instead of just having a banner at an event. Like, so I think that's where the difference comes in, you know, and at Wit, Dan and Sam, who are the owners of Wit, both have had, you know, tragic and deeply personal reasons in terms of with cancer, why they want to work with us this, you know, last year and this year. Similar everywhere, like every single person that we have. So I know we're very, very lucky on that. But, you know, at some point we need to make good on what we're saying we're going to do, which is why we work our butts off to give them something back as well as everyone else.
Yeah, but say like, you mentioned there about like ticket money and stuff. So we'll say we'll put on a hypothetical event in like my house. So we'll say it takes like, just to keep numbers easy, I suppose. We'll say like, you know, tickets and, you know, vendors like sponsor money and stuff. We'll just say like 100,000 is brought in. Like
Mm-hmm.
of that 100,000, do you know, like say pre-event, okay, no matter what's taken at this event, we need 40% has to go to this, 10% has to go to this, or like how does it work like when you're divvying up at the end, let's say?
So what we've done over the first 3 years with Battle Cancer is like at the end of each year, we'd oversold the events. Like we had more people than, so we work on a minimum. So I know I need to sell X amount of tickets to fund it,
Yeah.
because it'd be really stupid to fund it on like a ridiculously huge amount of tickets. So it would always be okay, I don't know, we've got your event at your house, we need 100 people to do it. I would say, right, the cost to balance that sheet is 100. So we need a minimum of 100. If we get 120, amazing, because that 20 is extra. So what we did, because we never spent a penny where it didn't need to go, was that extra money that we built up went onto a new venue and paid off the venue for the next year. So we managed to, pre-COVID, build up an amount where we were like paying to go into Germany and paying to go into Spain and paying to go into Ireland, because it had managed to grow to that point. And we were really key of never putting tickets up, because the other thing is I could reduce the amount of teams that I need, but whack the ticket price up. But my issue is, like, if I matched some other events in terms of the ticket income, that's money that's going to come off what you're going to fundraise. So I'd rather be one of the cheapest, like, mass participation events for 4 people, because then you're going to fundraise more. And this year we've got mad prizes for our global fundraising league. We've got a paid trip to Waterpalooza for 2022 as VIP tickets. We've got like mad stuff. So I want to encourage that. So yeah, I would work off the minimums. This is the minimum amount of teams that we need to sell. We've paid the deposit for this venue. This is how much more has got to go. And then hopefully you get more to kind of continue that growth of it. But, you know, people get shocked when you tell them how much stuff costs. And, you know, I've heard of events around the world that spend enormous amounts of money on things, and you go to that event and you view it and you think, I don't know where that money's gone. Like, it's literally, you just burnt it in a pit. And then, because I know how much, like, I can put something on for that's either similar or, you know, just being clever with how you do stuff. So we're always aiming that fine line of, how do I make your experience amazing, but how do I not take the piss with the money? Like, it's a very fine line to walk, and you have to be super careful with. That's how you would lose people very quickly, and then not see the value of what ultimately we're trying to do: fundraise and give people a chance to come together that have been affected by something terrible. I'm not trying to find, you know, a WWE show. I'm not trying to find like the biggest, like, you know, I'm not trying to be the CrossFit Games, but at the same time, you want to make it different every time that you come. So yeah, it's hard.
So say, like, if you have an event, is the business model then, we'll say, side of the charity, is that like the tickets will go towards, like, income, we'll say direct income will go towards like building future events and stuff, like it's kind of kicking it down the road for future events, like kind of nest egging it, and then the part of the money will go towards, say, the Move Forward program and stuff like that, and then the charity, we'll say the direct money for charities more so comes from participants raising themselves.
Yeah, so it's super easy in terms of like the Battle Cancer program is funded from donations. Like, so that's if somebody donates to it, it's like 100% of that. We don't even access it. Like, it literally goes through and it's directly pays for the coaching for all the remote programs. Like, that's what it pays for the coaches. Bosh, done. So that's why we're super frugal. Like, you know, 13 grand, we've managed to run 12 locations for 12 weeks at a time. That's like £1,000 for 12 people for 3 months. That's like an insane value. So that's really, really easy for us to kind of do. What we've said is, look, 10% of your ticket will get donated in. So we will take that 10% like operational amount. And even if we only hit the minimum, like, we will work that in and that will go across. So again, that really helps. With the event, anything that we oversell from the cost, it gets put into going into having another event, because I personally think that our model and how fun it is and the people that come to it and it draws, we could have 30 events, we could have 50 events, like, but I can't magic money out of thin air. So the more people that come to the events, you know, 1, it secures next year's, and 2, it secures that growth. You know, unless a massive events company, and then if any are listening, want to come in and buy us.
They're not going to be listening to this. I'll just cut you short there.
I try it on everybody's. You never know. I always try it on everybody's. But that's the difference. So this is my whole point with Tough Mudder. Tough Mudder self-funded itself to get self-funded to get itself to a point where it was so big that it got bought out. And when it got bought out, they instantly the next year put like 500 events on.
Yeah.
Pre that, they had like 100 or something, and then it got bought. Boom, 500.
But I suppose even it will paper over the cracks if there's a blip somewhere where, like, you just get the right amount of people. Like, say you just get your 100, at least if you've got this kind of nest egg rolling forwards, at least the venue's like it's been paid for. So okay, like that's a shit event. Maybe we won't have one in this city next year, but at least it's not a massive like hole from this event because we've been kicking it forward all along. So yeah, no, I understand that. The year, I suppose, it's been shit event wise, like definitely, but it's been pretty ridiculous. Like you really made lemonade with what you were given. So like even like say last summer, like the social media campaign, these ridiculous celebrities. Like I remember clicking on it being like, oh, that's cool. You got Catherine David. Is that Thor? And like just flicking through of just like this bizarre like list of who's who of like random people that you'd never expect to see together. So they were all like sharing the message. And then you had, the Move Forward gym opened up, and obviously like it's really shit timing with everything that's going on. How have you found the process of, say, getting the gym up and running and then having to like step back from it again so soon?
Hard, like it's difficult. I mean, in terms of what we were doing in the back end is still been going on. So like recruiting people post treatment takes a long time, because for in connection like groups for people to come into the gym. So we had like 3 people who were post treatment were already coming to the gym, and this was before we'd finalized the full mechanics of the program. So what we were doing was just basically giving them free PT. So it was shit when we have to be like, oh, I'm really sorry, like we're legally, I can't give you any more PT, like I'm really sorry. It was free, we were just giving it them in between classes. So that was just bad. Like you have to look at someone who's been, starting to see you as a way of recovering and coming through, and stop that. Other than Zooms and stuff, but like Zooms are just, it's not the same. And it's difficult. We have support groups in the gym, so the coaches all have a different group of people that they speak to. We've got competitions. We're always giving things away. Like I'll buy things and then we'll give them away for activating stuff and trying to do as much as we can. But it did kind of allow us to, in the back end, continue. So we've not really stopped in terms of trying to reach out to so many places locally, trying to grow the remote network. Like we're using this time to upskill all the coaches from the remote programs. So everybody's still really busy. Like we just don't run classes inside. We're having to run them everywhere else. I think the biggest thing is now, on a personal side, it's like, okay, we've got staff at Battle Cancer, we've got staff at the gym, we've got remote coaches through this, like we've got partners, and all of these people are like relying in various different ways with what's going on. And I'll make a plan to do something, and then it's like, oh no, we can't do it. And they're like, okay, I need to think of something else. I'm like, I think that's been the difference, and it's really, really nice seeing about how we've managed to make lemonade out of it. But it'll be the busiest lemonade you'll have ever tasted, because I've had to constantly like spin it again, spin it again, spin it again. And that's the same for this year. Like we've got backups to backups, because I was like, I can't come into this year and say to people, buy a ticket, secure it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm really sorry, can you wait till next year? I was like, we have to offer stuff for people. Like we've got to have plans upon plans upon plans, and we're slowly drip feeding those out about what we're going to do for people. But yeah, it's it isn't great, but also I could not have it. I could not have these amazing people I work with. Like what you said, it's an opportunity in terms of like things of it, seeing what's there and what's a possibility.
Do you think like, so obviously, it's been a shit year for all charities because it's kind of pulled the rug out on, say, a lot of, in Ireland, we've got like Daffodil Day where they'd be out selling daffodils like in every shop, in every shopping centre, on every street corner. And obviously they just, that their main day of fundraising was just ripped out from underneath them. And you got like, there's loads of different examples of that. And even, any of those kind of opportunities for people to have charity buckets out, it's not a viable option anymore.
No.
Do you think that COVID will have like a lasting effect, either positively or negatively, on like how charities work and how they fundraise?
I think big giant charities have had to like look inwardly of where they spend money. I think that's, and I'm not going to go down like trying to be too political in terms of it, but very, very big charities have probably had to look and think, okay,
Are we a bit
where,
bloated, kind of?
yeah, like where are we spending money? Like, is this definitely needed? Like, is this thing 100% needed for the goal? So I always talk about like returning back to what's your mission statement, like what's your goal of what you're doing, and if resources are going into things that are not that, and that's starting to be reduced, then you're doing something wrong and you've got to rezone it back in. I think that's something. I mean, the thing that I talk about that is a lasting effect. In the UK alone, there's going to be up to 46,000 additional deaths, which are classed as medically avoidable. So the medically avoidable is because if they'd have had an early detection or an early screening or an early form of treatment, those people would have survived. And, I'm not trying to denote COVID in any shape or form, but the vast majority of people who are unfortunately passing away from COVID are of a certain age and above, which doesn't mean that it's okay, but that's just a fact. Like, these people from the avoidable deaths in terms of cancer are not. They're predominantly women, and they're predominantly women from their early 20s to their 50s, which is kind of prime life, mums, sisters, girlfriends, everything else, because we couldn't do the stuff that we're normally doing. This isn't me saying give me more money to make that number even better. This is me saying this is just what would have happened normally. Now it isn't. So 46,000 people fill a football stadium. They're all going to be dead. And the worst part of that is that they didn't have to be. And that's the thing that I think is really scary, that we're not quite seeing yet in terms of cancer, let alone touching on people's mental health. But that is not going to be seen until later on in the year, when people are passing away that didn't need to be.
Do charities chat to each other? Obviously, I don't mean the companies, but would you have any? I'm trying to think of English charities that do is the Macmillan Trust, is that cancer charity? Do you have any interaction with them about timing of things, or is there any kind of territorial thing, or do you give a shit because you're all going towards one aim anyway?
Well, so the difference with us is we kind of promote fundraising for everyone.
Okay.
And that's been the biggest thing. So at our events, you can fundraise for any registered cancer charity. So the biggest beneficiaries have been Click Sergeant, Macmillan, and Cancer Research. So Battle Cancer Program is second to last in terms of donations to it, because it's so new. It's literally really small. It's something that we're growing. So the vast majority of people, when we come and do our Irish event, it's the Irish Cancer Society and Click Sergeant that are the two biggest beneficiaries of it. So for us, we're constantly speaking. So tomorrow I'm speaking to Cancer Research and I'm speaking to Macmillan. I've got lots of Zoom calls with both of them. We're also starting working in Movember. We've got calls lined up again with Click Sergeant. We also deal with a lot of really small hospices and small kind of cancers that are a bit more rare as well, because they don't get a lot of funding and they don't get a lot of eyes on them. So when you sign up to our event, when we give you your fundraising pack, the suggested charities that we say, these are ones that we think you should suggest for if you're not too sure. But if you've got your own, cool. So we've supported 36 different charities across the world, which is, we have conversations with nearly all of them. In America, the American Cancer Society, we did a big tour with them. We spoke to them about implementing the program. Macmillan, again, massive links. So we chat about what can we do on social media? What can we do to increase fundraising? Is there stuff that you can send to our teams that mean they can make even more money back in turn for you? So there's loads of those conversations. The difficulty with charities is there's a huge amount of red tape. And we've learned that as we've gone through charity registration. So especially the big giant ones, I can't just say to them, oh, just do this. They have to go away and get a board to sign it off and look at it and say, how does this impact on us? So it can be difficult to deal with some, but it's vital. And we spend a lot of time talking to charities.
Someone else you partnered with this year was Black Box, and you've renovated your home setup, which honestly I'm so fucking relieved about, because watching you lift in front of that parked car last summer, I had sleepless nights over that, where I just wake up, be like, he's gonna drop the bar on it, it's not gonna end well. So that was a relief. Have you any aspirations personally for yourself in competing, or is your training purely mental health, kind of physical health kind of thing, just for yourself?
I mean, I think I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to get. My big thing was kind of this year of this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to train as much as I can. I work from 7 a.m. to 11 at night, and that affords me the chance to train twice. It means that I can take that time out and train. My sleep's shit, but other than that, so this was me this year was okay, this is a golden opportunity to have stepped up in terms of fitness. And the other difference, you talked before about chasms in terms of different people. There's also an element of that that's completely circumstantial. So if I then have the ability to split my training to twice a day and do a recovery cardio session or whatever, that does give me the ability to get an edge on you, because you
Yeah.
don't have that opportunity, and I have access to kit and, you know, all this other kind of stuff. So no, I do like the Open's going to be really interesting. I'd love to get past that first like 10% thing to kind of go to this other thing. I'm not going to be in the top 80 of Europe, not a chance. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that. I know realistically where I'm at. But it'd be nice to certainly be in that upper amount. You know, to kind of be in that top 100 of the UK was always a nice goal. And it's difficult with comps. Like, they've changed. Obviously, it's gone back to the full affiliate team. You know, and I don't, the people I know and the people I want to compete with, they're not in my gym. They're not going to move to Devon just to like come and train with me. It's not going to happen. So I think it's going to be interesting to see the likes of Wodapalooza, and if Filthy comes back, and Norway, and if all these places come back and bring just like a normal team, that's definitely it for me. But I want to compete again in powerlifting. I want to do a Highland Games. It's been a massive thing.
You put up a lot of strongman stuff recently. I assume that's something that you're aiming towards, is it?
A little bit. So we were going to try and do this like ridiculous challenge this year, but I think kind of COVID's putting a bit off that. So we're going to re-look at it. But I was going to be doing something physically that would require me carrying a lot of weight for a very long time. So what I'm trying to do is get a little bit bigger, get a little bit more time under load, get my CNS back used to stuff. But yeah, I want to go. I would love to do like a sanction all, compete in powerlifting, do like a Highland Games, and then 1 or 2 kind of personal challenges would be really cool. But it's just being honest, man. Like, I'm not going to ever qualify for games. Like, even as a master, like Rich Froning is the same age as me.
Yeah.
Like, I know I've got better hair than him, but still, like, we're not, like, my hairline tells better stories. But, you know, I think the other thing that people forget is that when you turn a master, so does everyone who's better than you.
I remember saying to my coach a while ago, like in our gym, being like, yeah, but like, you know, a few more years, like I'll be a master, and you know, then I'll reap the rewards. And he was like, yeah, so will everyone else your age though. And I was like, oh fuck.
I just kind of hope. I said this to someone the other day, that especially with the Open, if lockdown continues, there's not that many people that have access to like a rig. I was like, by default, I might get a bit further. And then I think, you know, we've got really good partnership with Invictus, and Invictus have got some phenomenal masters athletes. And I think that's more about a consistency point of training into your 30s, going into your 40s. I think that is doable, depending on what the state of the world is and what kind of CrossFit and stuff is. I think that's possible. And also, maybe the guys who are really good in the Open category just don't really care about going into the Masters. But, you know, I train with like Kelly Friel. She's like Masters, whatever. She's phenomenal. Like, she wipes the floor with so many women in the Open category. So I think there's quite an often view that we look at the Masters being like, oh, that's easy, I'm going to be in that. And then you train with them and you're like...
I think as well, though, that aspect of it might put people off from doing it, because there are athletes who are like maybe just hanging on to Open category, and it's like, why don't you just go and do Masters? Like, and I think there is like a thing of like, oh, being put out to stud, like that's it, you know, like you might as well just bring out the shotgun, like if I'm going to the Masters or whatever. Whereas when you see them at competitions and at events, it's like they're doing stuff that the majority of us can't do anyway. Like, you know, it is like,
mate, Briggsy, like
ridiculous. Like, something that you've pushed more so lately, you've mentioned it a couple of times there, is I suppose the mental health aspect of illness and recovery. Is that due to, you know, have you guys been made aware of stuff through those engagements that you've made and conversations that you've had at events and stuff with survivors, or is it something that you kind of always knew was a gap?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I think that one key element for me is, you know, as a detective, I was always, especially as a detective sergeant, I was always asked to go to a suicide, like suspected suicide, and go and make a decision. So my job was to go and determine if something had happened here that was suspicious or not. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, it was not suspicious. It was somebody who'd taken their own life. And the vast majority were men. I mean, in my entire time, I remember one lady that took a life. That's not to say that it doesn't happen, but just in my experience. And there was always a common theme for me that was like, okay, this person's had a lack of a number of things happen in the life. Okay, what if we can do something that even if just one person happens to stumble across, and that one little thing just like stopped it, and and kind of, you know, started the journey of a recovery somewhere else. So that was a big thing for me on a personal side. I think on the secondary was, we've worked with so many people who are like what I would say secondary affected by cancer.
Yeah.
So there's always a guilt. There's always like a significant PTSD of those that have had loved ones who've gone through cancer, because they don't have time to think about themselves. They don't have a time to deal with their own emotion and their own mind, and they feel any guilt, or they feel selfish because they believe everything should happen for that person who's gone through cancer. And cancer, like, recovery rate's getting better. People are getting it, it's going up, but recovery rate's getting better. So, oh, cool, you're in remission. Thanks, well done. Yeah, like, I hope we don't see you. That's literally it. Like, there's nothing else. Like, there's limited small amounts of support out there post that initial thing. So again, for me, it was like there's a massive gap that nobody is picking up on this. That those people are forever the guy with cancer, the girl with cancer. Physically, mentally, what have they just gone through is very rarely addressed or supported. And I'm not a mental health professional. I don't purport to be. I've dealt with a lot of people in a crisis, and I've been on the shit end of stuff. And that for me is like, well, do you know what? If I harp on about it and somebody reads something and they read that thing and they think this could be good for my mate or this could be good for something else, that's a big thing. So in the gym, we've actually started taking mental health referrals. So the emergency services, the Marines, and 3 doctors' surgeries, we take referrals. We give them 5 weeks of classes for free. So we say, come in, just come in, be part of the gym. Like, if you stay afterwards, cool. If not, just come in, see how it is. If moving helps you out, when you walk in the door, this one's on us, like, kind of just come in and see about it. Because I was like, do you know what? Maybe that one thing that we offer might help somebody, and a version of me doesn't have to turn up and find them, dead. So there's little things we want to do continually that I think is so missed, especially in and around cancer, but other areas. I think we're getting better at talking about mental illness, but I don't see many things that are like offering a solution. I just see lots of talk. I don't see lots of like, okay, well, we're just going to try this. The worst case is you don't get better, but we're not going to make you worse. We just might not make you better. And that's why I think let's just crack on and let's just try doing some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're hitting the nail on the head with a lot of stuff there. Well, look, we'll finish with a quick fire to lighten the mood.
Sorry, I am the world's worst guest. It's all doom,
no, I think
and cancer.
No, I think, to be fair, I think what you're saying is, it harks back to what we said at the start, that it's perspective. Like, it's, you can listen to it and be really downtrodden by it, or you can listen to it and be hopeful of what's to come, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's, you can choose your narrative on it. Like, listening to the interview, you can either be like, oh, that's a bit shit, like that there's, a stadium full of people are going to die or whatever, or you can look at it and be like, well, hopefully next year it's better, like, that there's systems being put in place and stuff,
or I can do something about it. That's the other thing that I want people to think, like, I actually have something to do, which could be tell someone who I live, go and get your smear test, go to the doctor and have somebody stick a finger at your bum, because it's, as embarrassing as it might sound, like, it might save your life. Like, so these things that are really bad and sound depressing, you can do something about it. That's my other kind of like take home from it is, if it sounds shit, then crack on and do something about
it. So, run or row?
Row every day of the week.
Burpee or thruster?
Burpee. Hate thrusters.
Yeah, not many people like burpees either. Clean or snatch?
Clean, 100%.
Powerlifting or CrossFit?
CrossFit now. Yeah.
Bike or ski?
Bike.
Bench or squat?
God. The bro in me says bench, but I'm going to stick to my gut and say squat.
Yeah, it's winter, so squat is important in winter.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks a million for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think there's some great little gems there for people to nugget in on. I appreciate you taking so much time out. I'm trying to think of an animal type to compare myself to. Like, isn't a minnow is a really small fish, isn't it? I think. Isn't that why they call football teams minnows? Because they're a small fish, I think. Anyway, I'd classify myself as a minnow, but if there's ever anything I can do to help, like, just give me a shout, whatever. You won't need to send me those socially awkward, increasing emails. I'll be pretty quick to reply. But yeah, listen, keep doing what you're doing. I think it's great. And I think it was nice as well. I'm sure people listening will be maybe reassured is the wrong word, but like it's nice to know, I suppose, how the money is raised, where it goes, what it goes to, and where it comes from. I think because, you know, it's easy to look at, like, I think you mentioned there about people going to events and looking at being like, whoa, like, you know, how do they spend this much money on this? Like, it's not that great or whatever. Whereas I'm sure there's other people that go to events like yours or other charity events and think like, sure, all the money's being spent on this, you know, like that's where it's all going or whatever. So it's nice to know, I suppose it's nice to get an insight into where it's coming from, where it's going to. And, you know, if your aspirations and your attitude are matched by your actions, I think the only way is up for battle cancer. So keep pushing.
Thank you, man. No, and it's lovely. It's really nice, like, to actually have like just a very real conversation. It's, you know, I've been really like lucky again to speak to some people, and you know, I'm just selling. I'm selling. So I think it was really, really cool. And that's the thing. I always think, like, if you're not open, like, why are you not open? And, you know, we've always been really open with the conversations about how we run it, where the funding comes from, like how we do stuff, because ultimately, like, it won't work if you're not, like, at some point something's going to happen and people are going to see through it and not see. And I think that's where you've just got to be super open and honest about it.
You'd be like father to head, like, oh, that money was just resting in my account.
It was just resting in my account.